Matthew Ridge, welcome to Between Two Beers.
Oh, unbelievable. Like, I've heard a lot about you boys, but apparently you've heard a lot about me too, so...
Oh, mate, we are buzzing for this one. You should have seen Seamus's silly little face this morning when he bounced into the cafe. He's even brought his Matthew Ridge Manly hoodie in that you signed in the 90s.
I don't know where
mate,
and when.
That's unbelievable.
There you go.
So a mate of mine who I haven't seen for years, he was a bit of a wheeler dealer. No way. So you would have got this at Farmers.
My big brother came down and got it for me.
Mate.
Can you time? Because it's 90s, it's 90 something.
Yeah, I reckon that's probably 90, it's maybe 91.
Wow.
Or end of 90, maybe end of 90, but yeah, maybe end of 91. But yeah, so we did a whole lot of stuff for Farmers and made some T-shirts and stuff and just went round Farmers all around New Zealand. Like, because my mate of mine was he was like, right, we've got to make some money out of this.
Yeah, well,
we didn't make any money, but...
it's held pride of place.
Oh, mate, and it's still in good nick.
Well, it's a little bit faded over time.
But that's like, what's that? That's 34 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unreal, right?
Yeah. So I was also part of the Manly Sea Eagles supporters club.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know whether you played in the game, but I went and watched Manly come over and they played a Bay of Plenty 13. I grew up in Taupo. Bay of Plenty 13 at Rotorua International Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw the beast Kevin Ito for the first time in real life.
Right.
And I thought, this is the biggest human I've ever seen.
Yeah, he was a monster, Kevin. Yeah, he was a mate, real talented player. Super talented, super fast, super strong. But he was just such a cruiser, but he could pull a game. He could win a game on his own, but he could also lose a game on his own, So he was an enigma, Kevin, and it was really frustrating. He never he had so much talent, but it just came so easy for him. So he's just one of those guys that sort of drifted in and out, and I don't think he ever tapped his true potential, even though he was amazing. But I think he could have been probably one of the best centres the world's ever seen. He was that powerful, But he just mentally just drifted.
I could stay in 90s rugby league chat for the whole time, but I know I can see my man next to me starting to itch.
Yeah, we're going to drift in and out. Living in France at the moment, but back in New Zealand for a little bit. We were meant to record this with you a couple of weeks ago, but you forgot about a holiday in Bali. Is that the kind of the way of the world at the moment?
Yeah. Well, see, when I come back I have to come back to New Zealand for tax reasons because I have to spend a certain amount of days here, and yeah, it's pretty complicated. Anyway, when I get back here, I come back here with a good intention to get, be clean and green and, be wholesome and stuff because I keep pretty fit and I keep real fit and when I'm in France and, but when I get back here, we just tend to get, stuck into it. You'll be, and I'm 56 now, so you'll be training away for 3-4 months, you're feeling good, and it only takes 3 weeks to all of a sudden you're growing something out of your hip or, I'm like, where's that lard just come from, So getting back into it again now, yeah, but...
For those listeners who don't know the story of Matthew Ridge, you were one of New Zealand's brightest rugby talents, destined for a long career as an All Blacks great. Then at the age of 21, you kind of stunned the world. Graham Lowe gave you a call to see if you'd be interested in playing for his Manly Sea Eagles, and you said yes, switching codes, then played NRL for a decade. I saw Shay's eyes, light up. He was a huge fan. But do you get a lot of punters still coming up to you wanting to talk about 90s rugby league?
Yeah, it's like I was saying to my son the other day, I haven't sort of been in the public eye for a long time now. I think I did an architectural show, maybe a year ago, did a couple of seasons on that, but I hadn't been in TV or, I just kept a really low profile. But every time I come back, it's amazing, even if I've got a beard and I'm grey now, it's amazing how many people come up and say g'day, especially around the country. In Auckland, people just give you a look, but around the country, it's a different vibe, and it's really humbling. I have to be honest. And when I was a young fella, maybe, in my 20s, I was respectful to a point, but I used to get on my nerves a bit, as you do, but now looking back, if I could talk to that young man, I'd just say, hey, just take a chill pill, man. It's not going to last forever, and, respect, kindness, treat people the way you want to be treated, So now I just, I take, if people come up and say g'day, I take as much time as they need, because what else have you got to do?
Yeah.
And, the thing is you get I always call it that dopamine shot, when you look in somebody's eyes and you can see that they're having a good time, it gives you a good time.
Yeah.
And it's real easy. It's not money. It's nothing like that. And you walk away and you go, wow, that was cool. And it just just raises your base level of happiness,
You spoke there about, advice for a young man. Well, I'm keen to talk about you as a boy.
Yeah.
And, I've watched a bunch of Matthew Ridge documentaries across the last week, and the comment that keeps coming up is the mental hardness that you had. And I'm kind of interested in your family unit and the upbringing and what that was like and how it turned you into the sort of success you became.
Yeah, somebody asked me that question the other day. Like it was actually a girl in Rotorua. She just kept plugging away and I couldn't actually answer it because I had a lot of love in my family. My grandfather was a real hard ass. Super strict. Like dinner had to breakfast on the table at, my grandmother had breakfast on the table at 7:15, lunch was at 12 o'clock, dinner was at 6 o'clock on the dot, had to wash your hands, everything, had to sit down, no singlets, everything was prim and proper. But he wasn't really, he wasn't sports minded or anything like that. He wasn't working, he was just working the garden. I didn't spend, I spent a lot of time with him, but not really. And then my grandmother she got me into tennis and into sport, and it was almost like she knew where I was going in my life and that, that I would attract a lot of attention or whatever, And so she'd arm me with, certain sayings, like water off a duck's back and never worry about they, and, they's a collection of he, she's, or some buts, and always laugh loudest at yourself, which is a real good one. Like that's the best one because you know how people are always coming at you and stuff, especially someone like me or you guys, or they see you and they have a little laugh or they try and take the mickey out of you, and especially going to Australia, I'll digress, but when you go to Australia, if they're not taking the piss out of you, they don't like you, right? But if you bite, if they're taking the piss and you bite, and they see they've got you, well, mate, they'd only go for half an hour.
Yeah.
Right? So eventually you're almost in tears, it's just awful. And they literally go and go and go until they break you, right? So Aussies are they're a different kettle of fish altogether. But my mother was, definitely on the scene a lot, and I spent a lot of time with my mum, but, more so with the, hanging out in the gay community, really, because a lot of my mum's friends were gay, a lot of women, a lot of guys, but mainly women that we'd be hanging out with and going to gay parties and stuff. So I didn't get a lot of direction there, I don't think. My uncle was a good soccer player. He was around a bit. But, yeah, I don't know really where I got that mental toughness from. I think I just built up the resilience, I think being the colour I was too back then, and I was pretty dark. And back in those days, people, whether they like it or not, this is just how it was. Like tennis especially was quite racist. If you're a good tennis player and you were dark, it didn't matter. And especially if you had I was really volatile, right? So if things weren't going my way, I'd express it and I'd be loud and I'd have a go at myself and I'd have a go at somebody else or whatever. But nobody ever showed me how to channel my energy, So rather than the people taking me aside, the powers that be and go, hey, this guy's got a bit of talent, we just need to channel him, Roger Federer was an absolute shocker when he was young, smashing his bats and all the bullshit. But then somebody just got a hold of him and said, hey, come on. But nobody did that for guys like me. All we did was we just kept getting scolded, not like, hey, you're actually really good. Have you thought about doing it this way? Why don't we think about doing this? So I think the mental hardness came from just kind of having to battle away on my own, Not that I didn't have a family unit, I did. But, I had my grandparents who 2 or 3 generations, I don't know, but they're a lot older than me. My grandmother, my mum was obviously in a, she was doing her thing. Mum was, 19 when she had me, so she was just a young lady finding her way, and then, and the gay scene and all that sort of stuff, and having to work at restaurants at night. So I didn't really see a lot of my mum. I did and I didn't, if that makes sense. And then my uncle, yeah. So it's a good question. I actually can't answer that one. I don't know where it came from.
Well, I think you have, but because I'd heard you say that you didn't meet your dad until later in life, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of male role models, was your granddad,
my granddad,
your male role model?
Yeah, that was my granddad. Yeah, but I was super lucky at school. I can remember. I went to Gladstone Primary, and there was a guy, Mr. Martin was his name, and he was Mr. Martin. I can't remember. Anyway, but he was a sports guy, and he was real cool with me. He sort of not father figured me, but like I knew that he was a guy that I could go to. And then the guy that there were three teachers. Actually, there's a lot of teachers. But I was super lucky like that. So I went to Wesley Intermediate, which was a super good school. And the headmaster there was a guy called Mr. Johnson, and the main teacher there was a guy called Mr. Surhoy, and he was right into his sport. And he just he became like a real father figure to me. He was a Yugoslav guy, and he used to pick me up in his car. He had an old school, not Valiant, it was like an American car, and he used to pick us up, and he was cool. Mr. Sawyer was real cool, and he was a rugby coach. And so you just wanted to do the best you could for him, right? So he was into softball, so I played softball, I played rugby, I played cricket, I played everything, right? And Mr. Johnson, who was a headmaster, he used to say to my grandmother, because my grandmother used to get worried, and she'd go, look, Mr. Johnson, my grandson's just doing way too much. He said, just give as much as you can, So they just put so much stuff on my plate that I never got bored. But I remember the last day of school. It was last day of Form 2 before you go to, we were leaving Wesley. And I love Mr. Sewell. He was just I loved him it's weird because I haven't spoken about this forever, but he was like my dad, sort of, if that makes sense. But he was, I remember, and he could hit, because we always used to call it black magic. But anyway, it was the last day, and for some reason, I chipped him. He got a little bit smart, and he just lost his shit.
On the tennis court?
No, I just chipped him. We were outside, and I can't remember what I did, but it was nothing. It was nothing. And he just went, get upstairs. And I was like, oh. So upstairs, I went up upstairs into room 15 and went into the hallway. And mate, he said, I'm just going to go get the belt. And I was like, what the fuck? And mate, he went and got the belt, and he fucking gave it to me. And mate, it hurt, but I can remember it hurting in there. I was just I better have a drink actually. But it really injured me emotionally. But on reflection and thinking about it, he was just so gutted that I was leaving. We'd got so tight.
Yeah.
We won everything. We won all the rugby, fucking destroyed every team, won the softball, he was just so cool. And so, yeah, I just think he, it really hurt him. And then he left Wesley and went to St. Peter's College. And at that stage, I was by the time he got to St. Peter's, he'd been at St. Peter's for a little while, and I went to Mags. And so I used to play him in rugby. And I remember I made the first 15 when I was in the 5th form. And he was the coach of St. Peter's. My first game was against St. Peter's. We beat them 9-3, and I kicked all the goals. And I could see him on the sideline. He gave me a wink, but it hurt him.
Is the hype building around Matthew Ridgey at this point? Because you're a nationally ranked tennis player. You're great at football. You're sort of getting into the rugby years. But are people starting to make noise around you that, shit, this kid is going somewhere?
Yeah, I don't know. I think so, maybe, with rugby, I was a much better soccer player than I was a rugby player, but I just didn't see an avenue to go anywhere in soccer, in New Zealand we were, we had the 82 All Whites, and that was cool, but there just wasn't really a pathway, so I was I got to Form 3, and I was like, I'm just going to bin soccer. So I kept playing for my club, but I sort of stopped playing soccer at 14. But, I could kick off both feet. I had good vision, like I was aggressive, like, everything every team that I pretty much played and we won everything, like that's just how it was. Played for Auckland. And then I don't think they had New Zealand reps in those days, like it was. But yeah, then I just made a decision to play rugby. I thought if I'm going to do anything, if I'm going to go anywhere, and my mentality was I'll get a really good job if I become an All Black. So that was my mentality, like it wasn't about, I think I'm going to make a heap of money. It was like I'll get a good job and I'll be able to make some money. That's how that was my mindset. And because I can remember my uncle, because I used to idolise my uncle, the soccer player, and he used to work at the dry cleaners. And I remember asking him when I was about 12 or 13, I said, Bill, like, how much money do you earn a year? And he was like, about $26,000. I was like, man, when I'm 18, if I'm earning 35, I'm on fire.
Yeah.
So that was my sort of, I sort of set goals for myself, because we weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination. We weren't poor, but we, like my grandmother had to, we had to budget, and, it was a little notebook every day, and, like we didn't overspend, and I didn't want for anything, but I knew, that if anything big went down, we wouldn't be able to afford it.
It's kind of funny that the way you look back on it, didn't see an avenue through football or perhaps tennis, whereas you probably would have made more in those sports if you had stuck with them. Not that you didn't make, that you're short of $1 in rugby and league. But
that's a really, really good point. But yeah, like I say, like there was no avenue into, like I just felt like there was no support in tennis. Like I would have been we'll look at Brett Steven. You know who Brett Steven is?
Mm.
I don't know how much money Brett made in his career, but he got to the quarterfinals of the Australian Open. Like that's pretty amazing. And he beat he beat Sampras, Agassi, he beat the best players in the world, and he had a really good career. I think he got maybe I think he broke the top 20. If he broke the top 20 now, like he's making a serious living.
Yeah.
I think I said he made but he would have made a couple of million US, put it that way. Yeah. And that's a fair bit of money back in our day,
It's crazy our frame of reference as New Zealand sports fans to not appreciate what an achievement that actually is in terms of making it to the very top level of global tennis.
Oh, that's like, do you know, like that guy, so you got Chris Lewis, you got, I guess Marc Ellis to a certain extent, Russell Simpson, all those guys. But yeah, Brett would be, Chris Lewis obviously made Wimbledon, so he's probably our most famous tennis player. But Brett was like right up there, man, like cracking it, and could play, But like I said, like the first 4 times I played Brett, I beat him, and then the last 4 times I played him, I lost. But he got, I'm not saying that I would have beat him if people had show more interest in me but like he had his old man there, he had good coaching, whereas we were always on the second tier because we were the badasses. And so when you feel like the badass, you're like, you know what, fuck you. That's what it gets like, because they just couldn't see I don't know whether they couldn't see the talent or they couldn't see the underlying talent there, you scrape off the rough edges, it's like a diamond. When you see a diamond, it's rough. You got to polish it, right? It was like no one could see all these diamonds that they had. So they had Brett, who was awesome, but then they had guys like me, Craig Hansen. There were lots of guys that they had, but they just sort of went, oh yeah, whatever, And because we had no money, we were stuffed.
So it sounds like the childhood upbringing was good and solid, and you're sort of acing things in 3 different sports. From my research, I understand there was like an incident when you were 16 with the taxi and the cab, and I don't know if it was foundational and it changed the way you looked at the world or life. But
that was unbelievable.
Which I think speaks to maybe a little bit of that mental toughness and that resilience, because that's a traumatic event to go through as a young man.
That's a good point, guys. That's a really good point. Because that was horrendous. So just to give you a little breakdown, we were at we've got a bit of time, mate, so I can talk about it, right? Yeah. So we were at a couple of girls' places in Howick, me and my best mate at the time, Robbie, and we were at Auckland Grammar at this stage, playing first 15 rugby, and I rang my mum, said, Mum, can you come pick me up? And she's like, no, I can't, which is fair enough, but in saying that, Mum, like if my son or my daughter rang me up now and said, hey, Dad, I need you to come pick me up, I'd be like, yeah, cool, I'll be there. But that's just how it was in those days, that's how it was. But now, if all you want your kids to do is ring you and let you know they're stuck or B, they're in the shit. That's all you want, right? If you can get your kids to that stage, you're doing pretty good. So my mum got to that stage, she was doing pretty good. She just forgot to get in the car. Anyway, so Rob said to me, he said, oh, look, I've run from a cab before, and it's real easy. We get out at, I can't remember the road, it was in Remuera somewhere. We just get out there and we just run across the bridge and down the back of the house and then we're back up to our place. I was like, oh, fuck. I said, oh, okay. All right, sweet. So we rang a cab and we got the pickup. So we rang a cab from this girl's place that we're at, right? And we got the pickup from next door, right? So think about that for starters. If you're going to do something, and what she accused us of was horrendous. So she came and this lady came and picked us, Pamela Hopkins was her name. She came and picked us up. We were sitting in the back. I'm feeling really bad, because we knew what we were going to do. Anyway, she pulled up and we just jumped out and bolted, like Gonski, at a rate of knots, and she was stuffed. And I can remember saying to Rob, I was like, oh, mate, I've just got a real bad feeling about this, because he dropped me home in his mum's car. He was like, no, mate, we're sweet. I've done it before. I said, no, it just doesn't sit well with me. I just got a real bad feeling. Anyway, 4 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, I had this bang, bang, bang on the door, and I was like, And my grandfather's got one eye. I can't know, he would have been in his mid-70s, my grandmother mid-70s maybe. And I got up and I answered the door and there was 4 monster dudes there, right? And I was like, I knew immediately, I said, they said they were from the police. I said, hey guys, look, I know what this is about. Come in, I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry. I just went straight into I apologise. I've run from a cab without paying, blah, blah, blah. And one guy just goes, no, come in here and talk to me, son. So we went into the lounge and the other 3 guys, they said, where's your bedroom? So I showed them where my bedroom was. And 2 guys stayed in my bedroom. And by this stage, my dad was getting up and stuff. And I said, Dad, just wait in the, it was a sitting room because we had quite a big house. And this guy took me into the lounge, and he didn't even have to ask me anything. I just opened up. I said, look, I'm really sorry. We ran from a cab without paying. We'll mow our lawns. We'll pay the money back. Whatever we've got to do. It was just a stupid thing to do. I'm really sorry, officer. Blah blah blah. And he goes, no, mate, you held a knife to her throat and you stole $60 off her. And I was like, what? I said, no, we didn't. We just jumped out of the cab and ran, right? And he's like, well, anyway, mate, come with me. So he goes, we're going to take you down to the police station because we need to interview you. Anyway, he took me into my bedroom and those 2 cops were there and they were looking through drawers. They didn't find anything. By this stage, my grandfather got up and he was sitting in the sitting room. And the 2 cops were talking to my granddad, the 2 other cops. They were plain clothes. And then this detective sergeant Shriek, the guy that told me about, that, you held a knife to her throat and stole $60 of it. He goes, so we walk and I said to my dad, I just came out, I said, Dad, they want to take me down to the police station. I said, you stay here, I'll be fine. They want to take me down to the police station because they think that I've held a knife to a lady's throat and stole $60 off her. And he goes, where'd you get that information from, son? Mm-hmm. And I shit. What I should have said is, hey, fuck you, mate. That's what you just told me back in there. Mm. Right? But because you'd never been, I've never been in trouble before. And always, this is what I say to my kids, don't ever fucking lie. Just tell the truth. When you get in the shit, if you've done something wrong, somebody calls you on it, just tell the truth. That's it. If you tell the truth, then I'm good with it. I'll back you to the hilt. But if I find out you're bullshitting, then we've got an issue, right? So that was always my mentality, right? So I didn't think that the police were dodgy as fuck, right? So long story short, they get me down there and they're trying to get me to and I had no lawyer, no nothing, I'm trying to navigate this shit on my own because I've been navigating this shit on my own most of my life, because my granddad's old, my grandmother's old, my mum's not home, I didn't think I need to get a lawyer. you know.
I don't think that goes into a 16-year-old's brain.
No, it doesn't. You're just like, all you are is just like, hey, I can get out of this.
Yeah, I'll
this is
figure this
easy. I'm
out.
just telling the truth. Like, surely it's going to come. It's going to come around. Anyway, so they try to make me sign something and stuff. And he said, when you said something about, I said, well, I thought that's what you said. Because at this stage, I'm still like, surely this guy's a good guy, because they play good cop, bad cop. Yeah. Right? So there'd be another cop come in when I'm at the police station. He's like, oh, Matthew, I don't think you've done it, blah, blah, blah. But just, we need you to write this down and we need you to sign this and da-da-da. And I was like, okay, yeah, he's cool, right? Anyway, 3 high court trials later, 3 in the high court, right? So her story changes fucking from day to day. Our story doesn't change one fucking bit, because when you're telling the truth, you don't get confused. It's the truth. You just just keep spitting it out. But I'll tell you what happened. So the third trial, the judge is summing up, and this is basically like, long story short, he goes, now listen, sometimes when you're telling the truth, sometimes you get things a little bit mixed up, and, Miss Hopkins her story's changed a little bit from time to time, from trial to trial, and, she's got her things but back to front and da-da-da, like when she'd fucked things up, like it was just like, it was obvious. And then he turned to us and he was talking to the jury and he goes, now you may presume that those 2 boys sitting there, their story hasn't changed from the day they got arrested. And so you could probably conclude from that they concocted a story and stuck to it. And me and Rob were like, what the fuck? And I just looked at Rob and said, oh, we're done, mate. We're fucking done. And we were done, right? So we got convicted of aggravated robbery, right? Which is the same as walking into a bank with a gun and stealing like $100,000. So it comes with a 14-year sentence and all the bullshit, right?
Does your life flash before your eyes when that?
Oh, mate, like we're done.
verdict?
We're done. Aggravated robbery, you can't go anywhere. My sports career was fucking over. Like, I couldn't get out of the country, I couldn't jump on a plane. I was done. You're carrying around with a conviction with aggravated robbery. It's not, hey, we ran from a cab without paying.
Yeah.
It's aggravated robbery. And my mum, by this stage, we'd run out of money and my mum had given up and she said, Matthew, you just have to wear it. I said, Mum, I can't. But Robbie's mum was so awesome. She just kept going and she found this lawyer, and all he did, he just went, yeah, sweet, let's go to the Official Information Act. So the Official Information Act, the police have to release every single thing that was said from the day dot, right? And what they failed to present as evidence or let the defence know was this woman had said on her life, these boys have done this to me. They did this to me 2 years ago. It's the exact same guys. I will never forget him. And she wrote this down, right? And we were like, well, that's impossible because Rob and I had never met, right? And these guys knew, the police knew we'd never met. They fucking knew, right? So there was no case. They knew they had no case, but they thought because there'd been a spate of aggravated robberies on taxi drivers, right? They thought, let's just hang it on these fucking Auckland grammar cocks. Because they're on that Matthew Ridgey, that young guy coming up in sport, we're going to fuck him, and they almost did. Anyway, so that gave us the ability to have an appeal, right? Because there was new evidence. So we go down to the appeals court, which is in Wellington, and these 3 judges are sitting there. And, mate, they just basically went, look, we're really sorry, but this is a miscarriage of justice. It's obvious, and fucking booted it, right? So we skated. But here's the fucker. So I made the All Blacks. And then that Detective Sergeant Shriek, I was walking through the gym at the Institute of Sport. And I hadn't seen them or I hadn't thought about them for ages, But, can I just tell you about a story when I played? I was playing for Auckland against Canterbury in the Ramphilly Shield to break the Ramphilly Shield record. And there was a lull in the crowd. And this was between me going to, because I'd started PD and all that stuff, but there was an appeal and process and stuff. And it was so funny, mate. And I heard this guy, it was a lull in the crowd, and he goes, fucking enjoy it, Ridge, you'll be in jail next year. Right? Yeah. Oh, it was real bad. And when that just when that hits you, it hit me like a ton of bricks. But anyway, going back to the street guy, so I was walking through the gym and I saw him. And I kind of froze. And you know what? He was my best mate. he was like, "Oh, Matthew, congratulations on making the All Blacks." And I just looked at him, I said, "Fuck you, cunt," and just keep going. But by that stage, I was really bitter too. Like, I was bitter, and I was filthy on the cops, filthy. And to this day, like, I don't trust them.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. How did it change your perception?
So when my son, like, any of my children, like, and that's because a lot of them are good, but there's a lot that are bad. And we've got to make peace with that, right? So I'd say to anybody out there that gets in trouble, if the police knock on your door, say nothing, call a lawyer, and say, "That's it. Don't want to talk to you."
Yeah.
Are you going to arrest me? Well, fuck off.
Yeah.
Until you are. And I know I'm getting aggressive and shit, but like, it raises my hackles that, like, my family were put through 3 years of shit, and that guy, they were prepared to let me go down, even though they knew we hadn't done it. They had the evidence right there that we hadn't done it. They cost us so much money that we didn't have. I think it was about, my grandparents stumped up about $80,000. We didn't have back in those days, right?
Yeah.
I did want to ask, and you've answered it now. I wasn't sure how long that process was. So
years,
from
mate.
16 to 19.
16 to 19, yeah.
That's hanging over your head.
That's hanging over my head. So I'm going through, and then it was real weird because John Graham, remember John Graham, the headmaster of Auckland Grammar? Like, this is when you know, like, so we got out of going to see the cops that morning, and I walked out and Rob's mum picked us up, and I said, "Rob, we got to go straight to school and go straight and tell DJ, just straight in there." And John Graham's a scary dude, right? Like, he's like, you don't fuck with John Graham. He was real cool. I loved him to death, but I was still scared shitless of him. And when you're going in and tell him that you've run from a cab without paying, you know he's not going to be happy, right? So anyway, we just went in and we sat down. I said, "DJ, we've got to speak to you." And he took us into his office and we said, "Look, we've just come from the police. They think we've stolen $60. I hold on." And he said, he just looked at us and he goes, "And did you?" And we said, "No, mate. No, we just ran from cab." And he said, "Right, I'm going to ask you one more time. You telling me the truth?" And we were like, "Absolutely." And so he was prepared to stand up with us, come to court and all that shit. But our lawyers were like, "Oh, no. John Graham's a little bit controversial, this, that, and the other thing." We're like, "Hey, this is one of the best headmasters the country's ever seen. Like, he might be a bit controversial, but when he gets up and says shit." So all he just wrote, all they would do was he had to write something. And when you read something out, it's not the same as somebody sitting there,
Was there 3 years of stigma kind of hanging over you when you made the All Blacks? And was there still some of that baggage that...
I hadn't made the All Blacks at that stage.
But eventually when you did, was there a little bit of, he's a bit troubled and those sort of labels that follow people around?
Oh, heaps of people said that I did it, but that didn't worry me, But then I can remember, and you know what, it works out that she's Jared McCracken's auntie, for fuck's sake.
Really?
And so, and me and Crackers didn't really get on. We did, but we didn't. There was I respected Jared as a ruffian, but he was a bit of a bully, Jared, he was a standover guy, Not so much on the field, but off the field, and I can remember Jared was very much a money man, which is fine, we're all into our money and stuff, but he always wanted to be the guy that had the most, and I can remember we were playing for the Kiwis and we come back and it was 90, I think it was 95 or 96. It's when we beat Aussie, I can't remember. But he just lost his shit one day when we were out on the piss and fucking decided he was going to give me a biff. And I was a captain, because I was niggling away at him a little bit,
Was it that little Aussie influence?
I was just niggling away at him, but I said, "Oh, Jared, you know what you should have done? You should have gone and spoke to both sides. You just signed up with one mob when there's two mobs."
This is during the Super League.
Yeah, I said, "There's two mobs. You should have gone and spoken to both sides, you should have done that." And he lost his shit, right? I didn't think he'd lose his shit like that. Yeah, and he bitch slapped me. So, yeah. But anyway,
how does that? How does what happened there with the cab and stuff influence? Because, like I said, when I'm watching these clips of 21-year-old Matthew, so confident. Well, from what I see, so sure of yourself. You're making this huge decision to leave rugby behind and go and play rugby league. What a decision to make at 21. Is that has that influenced that mindset? Like, who's Matthew at 21 who's making this huge decision?
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that because I never had a manager or anything like that. And I can remember because after the All Black tour, I went and played in Italy, which was amazing. I went to this place called Piacenza and I just fell in love with the place, and the people were so nice, and the owners, the people that were looking after me were so nice, and I met some beautiful girls there. I was like, oh shit, I could live here. It was unbelievable. And I really loved it, and I didn't want to come back. And I remember Hardy rang me and he goes, mate, you got to get back. And I was like, I don't want to come back. And he goes, mate, you come back. You got to get back. We're like, you've got to get back. You're an All Black. We expect you to be back here for the start of the season, blah, blah, blah. So I came back, and I came back sort of like feeling like a little bit, I was a bit gutted. And we got the team that I played for, we got them up from C division to B division. So I was real stoked. So I wanted to stay and get them from B to A. And anyway, I came back and I came home from university, and I was hating university because you know how you just go to university because it's what everybody else wants to do, right? What everybody else is doing, and I was hating it. I was like, fuck, this is just not me, man. What am I going to do, And I got home and I had a message from Lowy on my, on your, what do you call it? Your answer phone.
Answer phone, yeah.
And it was just like, it was pretty much like, g'day, Matthew, it's Graham Lowe here. Mate, I was just wondering if you wanted to come and play rugby league for Manly. Hey, give me a call back. This is my number. I was like, fuck. I remember I walked in the kitchen. I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, straight away, cha-ching. That's what I thought. I was like, hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands, right? And mate, I had no loot, right? I was like living on the bones of my ass. Or in those days, I had a B bursary, so you used to get paid to go to university, which was pretty amazing, right? Can you believe we got paid to go to university, right? Those are the days. Anyway, I rang him and he said, mate, I'll be over soon. So he flew over and I went and had a meeting with him. And I didn't really tell anybody. I think I told a guy called Grant McCarrow, who was my coach at my rugby club. And there were no managers or anything like that because no one was professional, right? Yeah. There was no one. There was absolutely no one. So I rang Grant because he was an accountant. So I thought, fuck, okay, well, you might have some, But bless Grant, he's made a shitload, but he had no idea back then, right? And I can remember sitting in front of Lowy and he was like, right, mate. He just came out. They said, so what do you think you're worth? And I went, I don't know. That's what I said. I said, I don't know. And he went, okay, all right. Well, this is what I think you're worth. And it was at the
Po?
At the Poinamo over the shore. How did you know?
I've heard a version of this.
Oh yeah. So he got out his little it was literally on a serviette at the Poinamo, and he went, handed it to me. I was like, I looked at it, I was like,
it's like a scene from a movie.
I was like, fuck. Because it was $35,000 for the first year because it was halfway through the year, right? And it was $1,500 a game or $1,500 a win and $1,000 a loss. And the next year was like $55,000 and $2,000 a game or something. I was like, fuck, that's a lot of money. That was huge for me, right? And plus a car and accommodation and flights and fucking all the bullshit. And I said, what sort of car? He said, Holden. I went, okay. At least it's not a Ford. And I was like, okie dokie. I said, and I just looked and I went, yeah, cool. And that was it. And we just shook hands and we did a deal right then, right? And Zinny was signing at the same time. So he was over here to see Zinny. And Zinny picked me up to go to training. And, you weren't allowed to talk about how much money you're on. And Zinny's a bit like Jared, real money man, just wants to make sure he's getting more than anybody else. And Zinny's a fucking legend, right? I'm little old Matthew Ridge. I've just 1 year in the Auckland team, made the All Blacks, but he's a guy that I'm just like, wow. He's like John Kirwan to me, there's John Kirwan, Zinny, that's how it was. And Joe Stanley. And all those guys, because I just played with some real weapons. And anyway, he picked me up. We're going to training. We hadn't told anybody. I was like, I said, bro, what are you on? What did they give you? Oh, no, we were coming home from training. He goes, He goes, oh, mate, I can't tell you. I said, oh, fuck, come on, Zinny, mate. You can fucking tell me. Who gives a shit? I know you're on fucking more than I am. You'll be on shitloads more than I am. You should be. And he goes, no, fuck, I can't, mate. I can't. I said, fuck, come on. Anyway, he told me, he said, it was $100,000 for the first year and then 125 for the second and a couple of grand a game. And he goes, what are you on? I go, oh, mate, I can't tell you, mate. I can't tell you. And he goes, no, can't Ridgey tell me? I said, oh, no, mate, I can't tell you. But the reason why I couldn't tell him is I was so embarrassed. Yeah. Because I was like I was on a third of what he was on pretty much. Mm-hmm. And sure, he should have been on more than me, but not a third, right? And I was like, and to this day, so I thought he was coming. There was an apartment for me and him, right? So I get over there and I'm waiting for Zinny to come, right? And he's not coming. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then Loey didn't tell me. Loey just said he let him out of his contract and rah-de-rah. And I never heard any, because I just got straight in. I couldn't worry about it. I couldn't worry about why he wasn't coming. I didn't ring him and ask him or anything like that. And then I ran into him about maybe 2 or 3 years later, and we were at a pub in Parnell. And I forget who was there. I said, oh, fuck, there's Zinny. And I said, mate, I ran up to him. I was like, hey, bro, what the fuck happened, mate? And he goes, you didn't fucking tell me what you were on. And I thought you were on more than me. And I was like, oh, no. I was like, Zin, you fucking twit. You know, wow. Like, yeah, so that was it, mate. So the reason Zinny didn't go is because he thought, well, this is what he told me. Yeah. He thought he was on, that I was on more than him, right? But I was just too embarrassed to tell him. But anyway, as it turned out, it probably worked out better for him, you know, because he would have been a great player. He would have been a great rugby league player. But I just think it would have been a real grind for him, you know, and he wouldn't have had that, he would have ended up, because he wasn't fast enough to be a back rower. Like, fuck, mate, the back rowers are fucking lightning. Like Steve Menzies, Daniel Gunner, they were fast as wingers. And Zinny was not a plotter, you know, he had power and, you know, but he wasn't quick. So he would have ended up second row, front row. And he would have just been getting belted. That's
one of the all-time great games of salary chicken that I've ever heard.
Like, it's just so, like, and, you know, like, even to this day.
What a sliding doors moment.
Yeah, even to this day, you know, like, you know, because there was the apartment that I was in, there was his bedroom and there was my bedroom. We were rooming together, you know, like, that was it. And, yeah, he just never came.
Yeah, the media spotlight is just ramped up on you now, right? Like, you don't have any tools to deal with what's coming your way, and it's every move, you're a headline, everything you do at 21.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was out of it. You know, and then I had JK and Rick Solito, but I love JK and I love Rick. You know, they were just, and you know, like, I still love them. They were just so cool to me. But you know, I had JK and Rick, and they were following me around with a camera. You know, so I arrive in Australia, like, and I'm scrawny as fuck. With 2 weeks before my first game, it might have only been a week. I can't remember. Maybe it was 2, because it might have been State of Origin going on or something. I can't remember. I think it was State of Origin. Yeah, there was. So it might have been a break. But anyway, so I had this camera crew follow me. I turn up to training with all these boys, you know, and they're fucking big, like, and like, they were just hard. You know, rugby league players are hard compared to union players, just rough edged. So it was, and then I was 78 kilos, wringing wet pretty much. So this skinny little guy with an afro, gaps in my teeth, you know, with fucking surefire, cocky as fuck, you know, like, mate, I'm going to nail this. You know,
did you have that bravado with you when you went across?
I was like, fuck, I'm going to nail this, be a fucking piece of piss. That's what I thought, you know.
But that's unusual, right? Like, that mindset, that no one else has that. No one else at 21 goes across by themselves to a new sport they've never played before.
Yeah, I was going to say, having never played a game before.
And like, fuck, I got this, no problem.
Never played. But, you know, like, I was obviously watching it, and I was a big fan of rugby league, but I didn't realise how fast it was, you know, like, it was just so fucking quick, you know, because rugby, like, in those days, even to this day, you know, like, when you're a fullback now, like, mate, a fullback can dance around for 20 minutes and not touch a ball, you know, like, and that's what it was like for me, you know, like, they'd kick the ball down, you'd catch it, you'd run up to the line, and then you just grubber kick a ball through 40 metres, it'd go out and you run, go.
Yeah.
And you'd run back into position. I'd go, fuck, how easy is this game? You know, like it was. My position was pretty basic, but in league, my position was fucking far from basic. You know, like it was. I just got belted, and I remember the first time I played, and coming off the field, and sitting in the changing room, and I'd done pretty well. I was lucky because Michael O'Connor was injured, so he couldn't kick, so I kicked, and I wasn't a goal kicker. Well, I was a goal kicker, but I hadn't kicked for ages because Foxy was a goal kicker.
Some guy called Grant Fox had blocked me kicking for all.
yeah. So there was no I was going to be a goal kicker, but I was kicking for Ponsonby and shit. So, but I sort of had my eye in, and I think I kicked like 6 out of 7 or something like that, and hit the post with the other one from way out, and we beat Cronulla, and they were leading the comp. But I came in after the game, and I was like absolutely rooted, like mentally, physically, just exhausted. And I can remember sitting there, and I was looking down between my legs, and I said to myself, I said, fuck, I don't know if I can do this week in, week out. Because that's what it was like. It was just a war, you know, and no rest. You know, the ball doesn't go out. It's just full on, you know, and you kick the ball down there, they make the tackles, the ball comes back, you know. And it was savage.
I was going to say, it's fair to say it's very different to what rugby league is now,
it was
right?
savage, mate. Rugby league's super tough now. It's just as tough, but back then it was just as tough. The guys were hitting just as hard, guys just as fast, just as strong, just as fit. But there was all the other shit that was going on, you know, the facials, the fucking gouges, the knees, the fucking, you know, all that shit in the tackle. That's like...
So in that doco, there's that scene in the gym, right? And it's like the army drill sergeant, and he's like, right, there's 2 guys with gloves on, and he's just going to beat the shit out of your midriff.
That's what it was like in the tackle,
You know, that was the deal.
That was the deal. So when you got tackled, like, and I can remember the second half kicked off in my first game, and I caught it. I thought, oh, fuck it, I'll just take it back. And I ran it straight back, and I thought I was running between a gap. And I wasn't the quickest fullback in the world, right? But anyway, so I thought I was running between a gap, and this straight line come down, and I ran into Gavin Hatch, who was an old school. He was a hooker. Les Davidson, who used to just hit like a fucking hammer. And I ran between those 2 guys, right? And all I can remember was like running straight between them, and then just seeing my feet like just parallel, right? Like parallel with the post right in front of me, and I just like, they obviously smashed me. And that was the last time I took the ball back from the kickoff ever. I never did that again. Yeah. So but it was a real eye opener. But it's amazing how your body gets used to, you know, like just the physicality. But that's what was the hardest part. It was just the physicality and the mental toughness. Like rugby league was, people probably won't like me saying that over here because, you know, we love our rugby, and I love our rugby, and I love the All Blacks. So I do love the All Blacks, and I think the All Blacks is, test match rugby is a different level, obviously. But like NRL at that level is just so intense. That's how I'd describe it.
We're going to link up with some more league chat a little bit later, but I'm going to take a bit of a detour. So we had Marc Ellis on the show a couple of years ago, and your lives are kind of similar in a way. Like you had the sport, but you also had the TV, and you also had the business, which we'll get to. But I want to talk about the TV years, and I'm going to read you what Marc said about your sort of relationship on the screen and what was going on behind it. He said, "We got quite good at hustling. Because we just kept saying we're not going to do the shows, then someone would come along and pay you $5,000 to wear a t-shirt for the night. It was absolutely obscene. And the more you said no, the more they wanted you. So we were just laughing. So Ridgey and I were getting flown around the world, and we'd say, no, we're not going economy. So all of a sudden we were getting over in business class, first class on the taxpayer tit, but better us than the politicians, I say."
Fucking A.
Can you take us to that time? What was going on behind the scenes?
It was so funny, man. Like we were just so jammy. Like, so we were literally so jammy. So I don't know, Julie Christie found us, right? And so she had a production company, and she just said, oh, look, there's a show called Ansett New Zealand Time of Your Life. And we started just doing a segment in that. And then what they saw was there was a spike when we came on, right? So then she came and said, oh, let's do a show. And I can't remember what I think it was Fresh Up in the Deep End. Yeah, it was Fresh Up in the Deep End, yeah. We just hit it off, and Julie Julie paid us pretty well. Like it was, I can't remember what we were getting, but like it'd be fair to say, like this back in those days, like with all our TV gigs and you know, not like wearing T-shirts and shit like that, but we were probably earning $250,000 a year between us. And this is in the 90s, right? Which is a fucking shitload, right? To do pretty much nothing, you know, like just
have a good time.
Just to run around and have a laugh. And then we'd pick up, you know, all the other stuff we'd pick up after that, you know, like whether it'd be, you know, DTR, I was doing DTR ads and shit. But they were right. Like I was picking up big coin, you know, for back then. But yeah, Macca and I don't know, like Macca was a very, very shrewd, like Macca worried about what people thought of him. I didn't. Mm-hmm. Not what people thought about him. I didn't give a fuck about what people thought about me, right? So he was always the loved one. I was always the hated one, but that worked really well for us, you know.
Did you talk about those roles in terms of like making the shtick work?
Oh, it was sort of unwritten, you know. It didn't need to be said. We kind of knew, you know. So like when we do all those competitions with each other, like Macca really wanted to win. I didn't give a fuck. Even though that I wanted to win, but I knew that most people wanted me to lose, so it'd be quite good anyway. You know, like if I won, people would be like, oh, fuck, Ridgey won. You know, like so. And Macca would get real wound up if he lost, like fucking. And I just let it go, even though it did used to bug me, but I used to think about it as on these terms. I was like, look, it's really good for the show, you know.
Well, the majority of those shows just turn up, like you're not doing prep for it. No, you're kind of just turning up and you're being Matthew and he's being Mark.
That's what made it work.
Yeah.
You know, like when we did, like he's so quick, he's so witty, he's smart, he's the life of the party, he's a good looking rooster, he's just cool, you know, like how can you not like Macca, you know, like he's just and so we instantly got on, you know, and I'm sort of like a similar nature, but like I'm more broody, fuck you, fuck off, you know, like I just sort of charged through it. I was just used to like, and I'd always have no problem with sending myself up for the good of the show.
Yeah.
You know, like, so when I'd walk off Game of Two Halves, I'm like, I fucking had enough.
Yeah.
That's just a G-up.
Yeah. I want to talk about that because
a total G-up. Like, I couldn't give a fuck.
Well, that's the clip that keeps giving as well, right?
We talked to Boston. He's like, you need to talk about that one. And it's the culmination of exactly what you're talking about, right? You're sacrificing yourself. You're acting all pissed off. Everyone's laughing at you. You're in on the joke, but you're making it look like you're not.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like, do you like the haircut? You're like, oh. Yeah. And then everyone's there, play it again.
So that's what I realised. That's what I early on, like if the shoe had been on the other foot with Macca, he wouldn't have handled it. Okay, and you know that's true, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I knew that like he just had a way with people, and he was just, you know, and I was real cool with that. And it was just a privilege to be part of, you know, like him and I. Like what we did was pretty amazing, man. Like, you know, I don't think many people have had a career like that in TV that him and I have had, you know, like it went on for ages, you know, and we could have gone on, we could have carried it on, you know, if we wanted to, but we got to the stage where like, I think they came at us, TV, and said there was a change in thing, and they came at us and said, no, you're going to have to take a pay cut. And we were like, what? Fuck off. And we didn't, right? And, you know, like that Game of Two Halves would still be going. It'd probably still be going, you know, like, because it was just like, it just had something, you know, like, and it had a vibe. And you were saying about, did we, you know, prep for it? Nah, we just came in and just off the cuff.
Dream gig, right? With your mates, you're laughing, so it's good. Working, everybody's loving it.
You've got to remember we had Mike King, who was like, he's a bit rough and ready, but real good, you know, and funny and loud, and, you know, people liked him. Then some people didn't like him. Then you had Marty Devil on my side, who was just cool. Like, Marty's real smart, real funny, like quirky. Then me, Macca, and then you had Vici in the middle, who was like a knob end, but a good bastard. You know, like Vici was real good at what he did, you know. And yeah, so it just worked perfectly. And then Mark and I, you know, we got on junkets around the world. You know, we went to Russia, Brazil, flipping. We went everywhere, you know, like for 2 weeks, just taking the piss out of each other. Like, it was amazing.
I don't think people really understand the character thing though, right? Because you're this character for so long, for like a decade on TV, and you're doing it, and you are the most successful TV star of the time, you and Mark, because you're leaning into this.
Yeah.
But then people will see you in the street or in public, and they will think that that is you, and that's not you.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And that's thank you for pointing that out, because it isn't. So I played the character. And, you know, like, just like I said, you know, like, I'd set myself up, I'd make out like I was so pissed off, I was real angry, I was real this, I was real that, you know, fuck you, fuck the world, you know, like, and it worked, right? And I knew it'd work.
It's a really interesting point, because I've been trying to find a way to articulate it, and I don't really know if I'll nail it here, but there is, with Carfe, that's hard service work stuff.
Yeah.
And you have a persona of being in the limelight and being in the spotlight, but the reality is you're cleaning cars.
Grinding.
Exactly right.
Grinding.
And I always thought there was a really interesting kind of juxtaposition between those two things, because I've seen you there on the tools.
Yeah.
I've seen you there working.
Mate, I worked, I remember when I started that business in 2002, and we jumped out of the gate, and then I got a bit cocky, and then I got conned by a guy who said I'm all about integrity, and I ended up losing a couple of $1 million back then. That was a lot of money. But I had that business, and I you know, was fortunate enough to own the land and stuff like that. So, but I worked my tail off, man. Fuck, I worked hard. And then I got to the stage where I went down, we're going to digress into addiction and all that sort of shit over here, talking about all that stuff. So I got to a point where I was smashing gear, like I was just being I was a heathen. I was riding my bike and I was doing all that stuff, but I knew I had to get out of town. So I got out of town, but I left my business, like, so stupid. I left my business with a guy who had the same issue as I did. And when I couldn't come back. So when I came back, like, sort of 4 or 5 months later, I can't believe it was still alive. Like, we were, like, it was just a disgrace. I couldn't believe we still had customers. But anyway, I jumped back into it, fired everybody, and just started working because I was clean. I just literally just cleaned the whole place out and started again. And we were just building back up to the number, getting close to the numbers that we were doing, because it's a successful business, a good business, but it's a hard business. It's not like you just, hey.
Phone it in.
Yeah. So and then the financial crisis hit. And mate, when that hit, it was like and I was just getting it back, you know, just getting reputation back, just getting revenue coming up to what it used to be, and we were looking okay. Had heaps of debt, and then bang, like just whooshka, like it just fell off the cliff. And that was real tough. So I worked every day pretty much for 2 years, pretty much every day for 2 years, and couldn't pay GST, you know, like, because you had debt. I had mad debt, so I could pay the bank and couldn't pay GST, file GST. And then I just wouldn't, you know, you'd worry about that when it came to it. Obviously, I paid all that off as well, but it was a real tough time. But I tell you what, boys, this time's tough, because people, like, we've had that sugar rush and stuff, but back in 2008, it sort of came up, snuck real hard, it hit real hard, but it only lasted sort of a year and a half, 2 years tops, and then we sort of came flying out the other side. This one's been going on for ages, because I reckon my business, we're the first barometer, because we're a complete discretionary spend. You know, like, you don't have to use us. We're a luxury service, right? And we are expensive, but we're fucking good.
What, for those that don't know, what is the service?
So we're a high-end car detailing business, right? So we offer free coffee and all that shit now. We used to run a cafe and all that stuff. We have a really high-end sitting area and all that stuff, but we can't be asked with the cafe side of things, because cafes make no money. Fuck, they make no money unless you're in there night and day, and that's your bread and butter, you know. It's a real hard grind. So we just gone with the free coffee and all the stuff and Wi-Fi and stuff. So now we just concentrate on our bread and butter. And it's Boston's business now. He's bought the business. But yeah, we're we're not cheap. We're expensive, but we're a fucking amazing service. Like, we're top shelf.
Yeah. I'm going to move us in a different direction. And you mentioned it before.
God.
And I want to talk about the Brink, which is your podcast. And we listened to a bunch of episodes in the prep for this. And anyone who has got this far in the podcast will know, like, you're just so incredibly open, and nothing is off limit, and you will just say exactly what you think about anything.
Yeah.
And there was one episode about addiction with you and your co-host who spoke about sort of his alcohol addiction.
Yeah.
And you're incredibly open about, your drug use, and how you did meth for a couple of years when you were sort of in Japan, and you got on it, and then you got off it, and it wasn't something that held you.
No.
But like, what an incredible reveal.
It's amazing what a broken heart does, boys. Like, I don't reckon you've lived till you had a broken heart. So I've had 1, 2, 3 biggies. So you haven't lived to, but like, it throws you off. It's, so when you have a broken heart, you just throw yourself into anything that makes you forget about where you're coming from, right? So when I got to Japan, I was actually just coming out the other side, and Macca was actually, like, he was with Augustina, and things were a bit rough with him and stuff. But I can remember getting off the plane, or I remember getting out of the plane and walking down into Tokyo, and I was like, I just feel like I'm coming out the other side. And we went to this place. It was called One Eyed Jack's. Well, I went. I don't think. Oh no, Macca came that night. Yeah, Macca came that night. It was the only time he came out with me. Like, I was in Japan for 2 weeks. I went out every single night, and Macca went out once. Like, Macca was a bit busted. I went down the stairs, and there was this mad strip bar on one side, like, and the girls were hot, but not Asian. Not that Asian girls aren't hot, but they were from all over the world, right? And then I walked through to go to the toilet, and then I came out and I walked into this other bar, and it was this real oval plush bar, and there was all these girls sitting around talking to a couple of Asian guys. It was obviously a hostess bar, but I didn't know what a hostess bar was at that stage. Anyway, I met this girl, and she was real cool. And I saw her, and she said, "G'day, Matthew." And she leaned back, she said, "G'day, Matthew." And I walked past her, and I walked back, and I stopped to talk to her. And she said, "Oh, look, I can't talk, I'm with this," because she was with the Japanese guy. And so I went down, I sat, and I started speaking to some girls. And I watched her, she walked past me, and she walked to the toilets. And then I got up to go to follow her, and she came back, and she just high-fived me. Am I allowed to say this? And she kicked me down a bag of Coke, right, on the high five. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, how cool is that? Like, I didn't even experience that in my life. But anyway, it just so happened I started hooking up with her, and that's how I got into meth. And up there, it was like proper. It's not pee. So when you burn it, like, I'm a bit embarrassed to be talking about this, guys, but fuck, who cares? Like, fuck, it is what it is. I'm not ashamed of anything that I've done. But anyway, up there, it's like pure methamphetamine is like pure speed. So it's not, when you burn it, it's white, it stays white forever. Like, the shit, the chop that they do here, the pea or whatever, like, that's just disgusting. It's like just a whole mix of all this other shit. You burn it, it goes black, right? And just to qualify, I haven't touched this stuff forever. And I won't ever again. But yeah, I got hooked. But I didn't get hooked on the high. I got hooked on the fact that it went to the sexual side of my brain. So I was a real fit. So I had a lot of testosterone anyway, so I was highly sex. So I just wanted to fuck all the time, right? And I'd ride my bike and think, fuck, I did that, because I was riding my bike everywhere, my BMX. And people saying, "Oh, I thought he was a meth head." Nobody knew, man. I was doing television. I was going to work. I was a functioning drug addict. I'd get up in the morning, go to work, like, have meetings, do all that shit. But then I'd just jump on my bike and ride, and that's what saved me, was the riding, because I just got so fit. And so I got fit, but I got tired and I got hungry. So when I get home, I'd eat and I'd sleep, because I was fucked, because I'd be, I was going for it. It wasn't like I was on the gear, hour after hour, because you didn't have to when like the stuff that I had was like proper pure, like, so it's just like you just didn't need to keep doing it, right? So that's what it was. And it wasn't like that you get high or anything. It just enable you to do everything, you know, like you could achieve all the shit you wanted to do in your day. It's just so happened that I just wanted to ride my bike and train and fuck.
and
Is that right?
Yeah. And so how did you get off?
So, like, it was funny, like, Julie Christie asked me to do a show, I think it was Treasure Island in Fiji. And I was like, okay, cool, no worries. So I just stopped, because I can stop like that. I don't have an addictive personality, but, like, if it's around, like, I'll do it. Not that stuff, but if we go to a party and someone says, oh, yeah, okay, cool, no worries. Unless I'm like, no, I'm off that, like. But if it's there, I'll never have stuff in my house, ever. I won't have alcohol in my house. I won't have da-da-da, because if it's just there, I'll just do it. So that's how I discipline myself, right? So yeah, one day I came back from doing that show. I was there for 7 weeks. No drugs, no nothing. It was sweet as. Came back and they showed me a still of myself just on the island, and I had no light in my eyes. Like I looked like I was dead. Like, like you see how your eyes sparkling, my eyes are sparkling, you're alive. And that's when I just looked at it and I was like, oh my God. And I was still going out with this, and she's a beautiful girl, and she went through a hell of a time, and she's bounced out the other side, and she's put her life back together, and we're speaking again now. She's real cool. So I pretty much had to, I said to her, look, I'm going, I've just got to jump on a plane, I've just got to go, and like I just need some time to myself. And she was like, cool, babe, what way you go, But I had to get away from everything, because, I could see that I was going down a dark route,
So it
would have got me eventually, put it that way.
You're sharing these stories on the Brink and talking about it now.
Yeah.
And the goal is to help others, right?
100%.
For people that will be listening
100%.
to this and feeling ashamed about doing it themselves and thinking, good on him for speaking out so that I can relate. What is the message?
That is the message. It's, like we forget how to connect with human beings. Have forgotten how to connect. You walk down the street and everybody's got their heads down. Nobody wants to make eye contact anymore. Everyone's too cool. Everyone's too busy. Everyone's trying to make out that they're way too busy and I've got too much on my plate and I'm sophisticated and I'm this and I'm that and rah-de-rah. Like, we're all on our phones, we're all on our computers, like it's a real shame, so our community's gone, like I like to be able to walk down the road and go, g'day. And people know me, right? So people know me here and I'm still like, hey, g'day, how are you? And people are like, what the fuck? It's like, but that's how we used to get on. Hey, how you going? Like when you see like children, they're playing in the park, I go and kick a ball with them and kick around with them and have a laugh, make them laugh, make myself laugh. If I see an old person sitting down on a park bench, I go and sit down and say, hey, g'day, how you going? And they look at you and they're shocked. And then after a couple of minutes, you're talking away to them. And then I might give them, I say, hey, do you need a hand? Like, are you short for anything? And I like the other day, I dropped $50 and said and she was like, no. I said, no. Like, because if you give it out, you get it back.
Yeah.
And like you get when you get that human connection with people, you get a tingle.
Mm.
What has the feedback been from the Brink and from sharing both you and Ringo's experiences?
Like, I'll put it this way, like I was in Gisborne the other day, just a couple of days ago, and this lady came out. She was a Māori lady, and she just said, hey, look, I just wanted to say, hey, big ups, and that's pretty much what it's been. Everybody that I've come in contact with are like, hey, well, thank you, because my story's not too different to everybody else's. We all have our demons, we all have our dramas, we all have our life experiences and that sort of stuff. And this is just my experience. So like, if you can communicate an experience, and I've got a platform, not that I'm like but I've got a platform like you guys, I can come and speak. And just like you said before, bro, like if somebody can take away from something that you've said or glean something from that you're saying, then that's a good thing, right?
Well, on that, so I drove up today and listened to that addiction episode, and I've found myself in the car alone, nodding along to Ringo's story because for your benefit, you won't know this. Listeners will stop drinking 3 years ago, so decided, look, that's not for me anymore. Stevie was a big help in terms of helping me make that decision, but the feelings associated to it. You know, the feelings of remorse, the 3-week hangovers after a huge bender, I think there's great power in storytelling and in sharing, and it doesn't matter if it's us, if it's you guys, if it's whoever. There will be people somewhere along the line that they'll silently nod along, and someone will get alongside them and say, "Listen to this. This might help you."
I can't disagree. Like there is great power in storytelling. That's how we learn. You know, like so if you a lot of people are. And I get it. It's not for everybody. You know, it's like it takes a lot to be really open, but I think if you're open, as open as you can be, then you just learn so much more, you know, like, life's a real trip, hey?
Which is interesting, because, again, to go back to the public perception of who people think Matthew Ridge is versus who Matthew Ridge actually is.
It comes back to what you guys were saying before. It's like you put on an act. Like, so when I'm on television, that's an act. You know, like it's just setting yourself up for the good of the show, for your entertainment, not my entertainment, for the people that's watching's entertainment, right? Because that's what we're there to do. We're there to entertain, like you like the court jester, right? But that's not actually who you are. Like that's a person, that's somebody you can portray, and that's a part that you can play, but that is not who I am. Right? And who I am is probably like a very deep thinking, sensitive, caring, nurturing person, right? That's who I am, right? And I'm also fiery. I've also been, some of the things that I've said to people, I've also been rude, I've been obnoxious, I've done all the things that, but you learn, right? You learn. And as soon as you stop learning, you might as well put yourself on a box.
So on that theme, when the Brink launched, you attracted negative headlines for like some of the language you used in the episode, right? Like, did that bother you that
not
was
at all,
coming back?
We like to say, and you guys know this, like it's a soundbite. Like if you listen to the show,
I'll front up here. When the show first came out and that came out, I thought, I'm not going to listen to this.
Yeah.
And now in researching the episode, I've listened to 4 or 5 of them, and I'm like, actually, contextually very different.
Yeah.
To that soundbite that was pulled out.
That's it. So that's like with gay people, right? They're gay. Are they queer? These are the names that they give themselves, not us. You know so that was just, like when you say, he's a queer, he's gay, he's a fag. Like, see, for me, fag sounds horrible, and queer sounds horrible, right? But those are the names that they give themselves, right? It's not what we, we don't call them that. They call themselves that, and they have a laugh and blah, 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 and that's all cool, right? But if you're somebody like me, and if you're somebody that's trying to sell newspapers, then what are you going to do? You're going to take a soundbite? Right, they went everywhere. They went to the UK. Yeah. They went to Australia, like this controversial da-da-da. So I look like this guy. I'm like, I look like this guy who's a buffhead, right? When I'm completely the opposite of how they portray me. But I know that's going to happen, right?
But was that was a soundbite you guys created, right?
Yeah.
Like from the clip. Because like say when you listen...
We might have. Oh, yeah, we might have. But like... But you've got to kind of do that as well.
That's what I wanted to ask about. Like you're launching a podcast and you need to get people to listen to you.
We're having a cup of tea. So we had to have a sort of a
hook.
A hook, but I think sitting with David, because David's obviously a gay guy, but he was straight up until he was 18, 19, right? So it's okay when you're sitting there with him, but how we even got together, I don't know, because I can remember Jaime said to me, look, Dad, I want you to come and meet friends of mine. Jimmy and Ringo, and they live in Monaco and they're married and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, oh, Dad, like Ringo's had a lot of work and he looks, like he looks a bit different. And I was like, oh, whatever. Well, what do you think I'm going to like pay him out like in front of him? She's like, well, you've done it before, Dad, But anyway, I met them and we just got on like a house on fire. And it just so happened that Ringo and I we just could talk about anything, and go anywhere, and there was no judgment, which I'd found. I haven't found that in anybody, to be able to like talk really openly about things that are super like sensitive, or it could be embarrassing or whatever. People take it the wrong way, right? And then I just sort of said, you know what, just as a throwaway, we should do a podcast. And he was like, yeah. And then he's the one that's picked it up and run with it. Mm. And yeah, we just, I don't know, but I tell you what, boys, it's a lot of work, hey? Far out, like.
Yeah, the weeks keep coming.
They do, eh? Like, so, and Ringo, he does pretty much all the work. I just turn up and talk, right? But it's, like when you commit to something like this, you have to commit to it. Yeah. But it's been really good for me because it'll enables you to like to tell stories. Yeah. And that's the way we learn.
One of the really interesting dynamics I found with the Brink was when you invited Boston, your son, on to have a conversation. And I spoke to him in the lead up to this episode around what that experience was like. Because if you haven't listened to the episode, there are themes in there from a family perspective which would be quite confronting, which address the breakdown of your marriage to Jaime and Boston's mum.
Yeah.
Addressing some of your issues as a father and where you were during the formative years of his life,
totally.
Those are heavy conversations which sometimes are only had behind closed doors or with the help of a professional therapist to work some of that stuff out. And it was a great gripping watch.
That's the thing. I think we need to we need to be able to share those stories, because why do we have to go to when you go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist and stuff, it takes them ages to get to know you, and there's all this money you got to spend and blah blah blah. Right? Whereas if you can tell a story, right, and people know me, right, so there's a social contract there, if you know what I mean. So what I'm saying is I guess that's what happened to me was my experience, and it was really real, right, with my son, with my daughter, like the stuff that I went through with my daughter was insane, and I hope Sally doesn't mind me saying this, but, I always say that it's really important for parents of, when you break up, to not talk badly about the other parent, no matter how shitty they've treated you or whatever's gone on, because the two children that you've had together, right, that's their dad or that's their mum. You got to prop them up, no matter how you feel about them, because they're the ones that are going to raise these two kids, right? And if you don't do it properly, then guess what? You're going to have a big satchel carrying around, because you're going to be looking after those kids for the rest of your life. So like my two kids, Jaime and Boston, they're out the gate. They're successful. They're doing their own thing. My youngest boy's coming up. Now I've got to worry about my two little ones, So it's a big job, boys.
Mate, you've got a 3-tiered parenting journey with your two eldest that are in their 30s and 20s. Yeah. You've got your middle son who's early teens, and then you've got the two little ones. Two little ones coming back behind you.
And they're in France, and that's another whole level of.
I'm going to bring in Boston's voice, because we sort of asked him about you as a dad, and it's really nice. I want to read what he said. He said, for me, he taught me the fundamentals of being a good human. Obviously, with my mother as well, I can't give away all the credit to Dad, but I think I've turned out to be a pretty okay bloke, and that's down to my mum and dad. I guess when he was a bit more brash and young, he was a bit more of a bulldozer, as he would say, but he was always compassionate, always empathetic, always a good human, and cared about the people that cared about him. He's very loyal, but if you rub him up the wrong way or did something to him which affected him or hurt him, he would tell you to fuck off, and a lot of people don't like that. Sometimes that's been hard growing up with, but as I'm sure you'll see today, he's a very good human, he's a good bloke, and as he gets older, he's wiser and he's more open to talking about stuff, which is really cool. But I think he's the best dad in the world, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
That's beautiful.
That's pretty cool to hear. Eh?
Yeah, he's a cool kid though, man. He's cool. So with Boston, I think we said this on the podcast, but we didn't really go into length with Jaime. So I was just, when I split up with Sally, we didn't talk a lot. And she did a great job with the kids. But the kids were young, and when the kids are young, they need their mum, you know, like, but obviously, like I spent a little bit of time with them, or a lot of time with them, and provided financially, but not a lot of, not as much time as she spent with them. But I think Sally needed the children more than I did, you know, like, just because when you leave, I left, when you leave, it's a pretty big hole to fill, right? So she sort of needed the kids, you know, and I recognised that, I guess, to a certain extent. But anyway, as we started getting back together as a family, I guess, not together like that, but, you know, talking and stuff. She rang me one day and she goes, Matthew, I'm really worried about Jaime. She's seeing this guy, and you know, like, he's coming around every week and every day during the week, and I just don't like it. Can you have a word to them while I'm away and see if you can? And I said, okay, cool. I'll have a word to them. I'll sort it out. But you got to back me up 100% on this, right? And she goes, yeah, of course. I said, 100%, Sally, because what I laid down, like, they're going to agree to it. Then if you go and don't agree to it, then it's going to make me look like, you know, you're going to undermine me, right? Seriously undermine me. Anyway, she comes back from the thing, wherever she was. I think she was overseas. And she was going out with Adam Perori at the time. And Adam rings me up. He rings me up. It was Monday. And this particular boy that Jaime was seeing, he wasn't allowed to come and see her till the weekends. He rings me up and he goes, hey, mate, he's here. I said, who's here? He goes, I won't say his name. He goes, he's here. I said, what? It's Monday. And he goes, yeah, I know, mate. I know it's Monday. I said, okay, I'm coming down. And he must have got off the phone straight away, because I just left up the road and said to Sally, he's coming down. And my phone's ringing. She goes, don't you come down. Don't you come down. I said, Sally, I cannot believe that he's there. So I just come bowling into the house. Like, not bowling, and knock on the door. Adam opens the door. He shits his pants. I swat him to the side pretty much. Go around the thing. And it's a massive house. It was a beautiful house. They built this house together, Sally and Adam. And they were sitting in this, it's a big mezzanine, but we were sitting down just by the kitchen. There was this guy that I wasn't supposed to be there, Jamie's boyfriend, and Sally and Jaime was sitting here, and Adam was sifting around. I couldn't see Boston, but it didn't matter. And so I went up and I said, hey, bro, what are you doing? Why are you here? We spoke about this. You agreed to it. We shook hands in front of you and my daughter. We shook hands, and you're not to be here. And he went, oh. He said, oh. And Sally was like, I know, Matthew, I've changed my mind. And I didn't listen to Sally. I was just like, hey, mate. I was looking at him. I say, hey, bro, it's time to go home, mate. You and I we had an agreement. You've got to go, okay? You're not family, okay? And I want you to go. And as soon as I said you're not family, Jaime, I'm so proud of her. She jumps up and she goes, fuck you, Dad. At the top of her voice. And I was going out with a girl, Carly Binding, at the time, and Carly was carrying my middle son, London, in her tummy. And she goes, fuck you, Dad. Carly's not family. You can da-da-da. And she just fizzed right up at the top of her voice. And then I turned around and I was like, holy hell, I'd lost control of the situation, right? I knew, I was like, mate, I'm not going to be able to get this kid out of here, and I started to shake, because it's quite an emotional thing, it's high pressure, and I thought, okay, I need to leave. And Adam comes up and he goes, oh, mate. Maybe you should go. I was like, yeah, fuck, whatever. Anyway, sorry, Adam, but that's what it was like. And you know what we're talking about. Anyway, I got to the door, and by this stage, Sally was walking behind me. I'll never forget it. And Sal, this is all good. I forgive you, and you don't remember doing this. But she was hitting me with a remote control on the head.
To get you out.
Yeah. No, because when it's like a family drama, when things get emotional, people just do things that they don't remember, right? And And like, because I've been in lots of situations, high pressure situations, be it football, be it sport, be it business, be it whatever, when your emotions are really heightened, that's when I'm at my best for some reason. I don't know why. Anyway, then I just snapped in. I was like, Boston, where's Boston? And I knew I had to see Boston because otherwise I knew the story would get twisted, you know, and it'd be, you know, Dad's an asshole. He came down here. He was swearing and yelling, abusing everybody. When I wasn't, you know, I was just calm and da-da-da. And so I walked back past him again. Oh, Sally don't know me anymore. I walked past him and I looked up and Boston was sitting on the mezzanine, standing on the mezzanine. So he'd seen everything. I was like, oh, thank God. So I walked upstairs. I put my arm around him and I said, hey, buddy, look, I'm really sorry you had to see all that, but I'm going to go now. What do you want to do? He said, oh, can I come with you, Dad? I said, yeah, cool, let's go. And from that day on, he was in my pocket. And it was the right age for him because he was 12, 13, right? And when a boy's, like, I'll say this, like, women are super important to raising children, like, without a doubt, but a woman can't raise a man. Just like a man can't raise a girl. You know, like, a boy's got to have his dad. You know, you have to have role models, you know, and that's why you can't speak ill of your mother or your father to your kids. It's just not a go, right? So, and he rolled with me for pretty much, he lived with me from then on, you know, and he's still, like, obviously he's super close to his mum. He's the glue of our family, actually. I'm super proud of him. But then Jaime and we didn't speak for long time.
Are we talking years?
Years. It took me a long time to forgive her for that. And she's real, like, Jamie's staunch. She didn't give a shit. But then it was so funny, like, so she would have been 16, 17, just starting to go out, right? And then she'd be 18, 19, and she had a bit of a following, and, you know, like Sonny Bill Williams and all these dudes. I'll tell you a story about Sonny Bill Williams. I'm real proud of her for doing this. I'd end up going to nightclubs because I'd be going out and stuff, and I'd go to a nightclub and I'd go downstairs and the bouncers would come down and they go, no, mate, you can't come in. I'd be, what do you mean, mate, I can't come in? He goes, mate, your daughter's in here. And I'd say, yeah, so? Well, mate, no, you're not allowed in, Matthew. Sorry, your daughter's here. You can't come in. I'm like, babe, she's my daughter. No, mate, you need to leave. And I'd be like, okay, cool. So I leave. We're like, fuck, I've just been kicked out. My daughter's had me kicked out. Like, has she got my name or have I got her name? You know? You know?
That's a wild dynamic.
Oh, mate, so it happened heaps. Like, and then one time, so funny. Well, it wasn't funny. It was actually bad. I ended up at this, it was a big gig somewhere. It used to be, it's down by the waterfront where all the boats are. I can't remember what the name of it is. Anyway, they used to have big functions down there. And I walked into this place and I had an invite. Or somebody invited me. Anyway, I walked in and one of the bouncers saw me and he came up and he goes, oh, mate, you're not allowed to be here. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, mate, your daughter's here. And I said, yes, so what? Like, she's my daughter, mate. Like, you know, it's all good. He goes, no, you need to leave, mate. I said, and then Jaime came around the corner and I saw her and I said, hey, Jaime. She was like, hi, Dad. You know, it was just like that. And I said, see, mate, we're all good. And he goes, no, mate, you need to leave. Anyway, so I said, okay, cool. So I was walked out the door, and then this prick, mate, like, I was just leaving, and he grabbed my arm and wrenched my arm right up my back, and threw me down on the front of a bonnet of a car like he was some sort of, like, tough dude, right? And I couldn't move. I was fucked. Like, any further, he would have broke my arm. Anyway, Jaime came running out. She said, leave my dad. So, and that kind of brought us back together, just her seeing me getting treated like, you know, like, because she was getting me booted out of all these places. Yeah. Bless her heart, right? She was like, I'll show you, Dad. Can you get rid of my dad? Right. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So she was like, I thought I was a man about town, but I wasn't. Yeah. So
to close the loop on the story, when did you reconcile? How did you reconcile?
So it was pretty much after that. Then we just started talking again. And I think when she met her husband, he was a real cool dude, Tommy. They live up in the States. So, yeah, we just started talking again. You know, I think Jaime just grew up. you know, and realise that, you know, like, you know, I wasn't kicking off, or, you know, that basically I was just hurt. And I was just hurt, you know, when she said that, you know, Carly wasn't family, and, you know, but she was carrying London in her tummy, and you know, Jaime had been up, she you know, she knew. But, you know, you say things that you don't mean. And, you know, I probably carried it on a little bit too long as well, you know, but I think when all that stuff went down and she actually saw me getting hurt, you know, that probably made her realise that she's only got one dad. And now we're tight as. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing is like when I go to the States, so funny, she's got a little outhouse out the back of her place. And so I'm sort of tripping around. I go out of bed and, you know, I come home when I want. And she's got all these cameras, right? So she knows what times I come in. And then when I come in for breakfast, she's just like, she just drills me. Like so,
sounds like a role reversal.
Yeah, mate, it's unbelievable. Like I can't get away with anything.
And you're a grandfather now as well.
Yeah. So she's got a beautiful little boy. Porter's his name, and he's delicious. So yeah, it's been full circle, and what's been beautiful is that Sally and I have come full circle as well. You know, like she's got a lovely man in her life now, and he's a lovely guy. She actually deserves to be treated like a queen, because she is. You know, she's had a pretty tough road. She's been lucky, but also, you know, like she's been unlucky in love as well. So, and when you're unlucky in love, all we want is connection. Yeah. You know, that's what I reckon. You know, I don't know about you guys, but, you know, I want to go home and be with a woman that, you know, adores me, loves me. You know, like I never thought I'd be the sort of person. I always used to say to people that I fell for, like, I'll love you like you've never been loved, but I'll never be faithful, because I just didn't believe in monogamy. I just didn't think it was in me or anybody else, to be that matter. And then one day I just changed, and like, thank God, because mate, it just makes it so much simpler. And here's the other thing, no bullshit. Just don't tell lies. Like, as soon as there's any bullshit in your relationship, as soon as there's any lies, as soon as there's something you can't tell anybody, as soon as you can't put your phone down, as soon as you've got to worry about, as soon as there's any little bit of niggle that you are too scared to tell your partner, then you're going down the wrong path, you know?
When you're speaking these things, how do you, like, is it a form of therapy for yourself to say some of these things out loud?
It's just what I know. You know, like I've done a lot of fucking bullshitting in my life, man. Like I've had, you know, I say that, you know, men are predatorial, but so are women. You know, like when a woman decides that she wants a man, she's going to get him. You know, like if a woman's like, if there's a beautiful woman out there and she wants you, she decides to put her fucking horns down and come get you, she's gonna come get you. And you know, like I had that happen to me a couple of times, and that's what fucked my, you know, that's what stuffed up my marriage. But this was a woman who was married and just decided that she wanted a piece of me. Right, and it didn't matter how often I said nah. She just kept coming and coming until I went, fuck, all right, doesn't matter, I'll throw in the towel. But you know what? It's just when you carry around baggage, guys. Honestly, when you carry around lies and bullshit, it just weighs you down, and the negative energy that follows you around the place, you know. It just weighs you down.
We won't keep you much longer, but I can't have you in without.
Fuck, I'm talking a lot of shit, eh?
No, you're not. You're speaking your truths.
I do want to touch on. I said we'd bring it back to rugby league, and I do want to touch on the Warriors and reflections there, because 6 years at Manly, and then you make the decision to move back home. How do you reflect on your time at the Warriors now?
I found it really hard. It was real hard. Because I had super high standards and come from the best team, you know, like we'd made the grand final like sort of 3 years in a row, I think, and best defensive team and all that sort of stuff. And I came back to a team that had no culture, no coach. Money was sorry, John, but he wasn't a very good coach, you know, and certainly not a good man manager. It's okay if you're not a good coach, but you've either got to be a man manager or you've got to be technically really good coach, right? the best are technically good coaches and good people, a good man manager. He was neither. So, I felt like I was thrust into a role where I started coaching, and then, when you're focusing on I was focusing on so many things, trying to get us to a level, and then like the way I spoke to the players and stuff, like on the field, you don't have time to fuck around on the field, right? So you say what you think, but a lot of the guys they just couldn't handle it, right? So it'd go in one ear and out the other, and they'd be like, if you can't talk to me like that, whereas in Australia you can say what you think, and guys just wear it because they know it's true, right? Whereas these guys didn't really know whether that they were good, they were bad, or they were indifferent, right? So it was really, really hard. We had a great halfback. He was an amazing attacking player, but defensively he was like average, and that's being kind, Stace, You don't want a premiership if you don't have a halfback that can attack and defend. That's it in a nutshell. If you've got a weakness in your line, you're fucked.
And you're public as well now, right? Like they print all what you're making for payment and stuff. That can't help the relationship with the team.
When your salary was leaked.
Oh, mate, that was awful, right? So, and they did that just to put pressure on me. So what happened was, I think Tainu were trying to buy it, or somebody was trying to buy it, I can't remember. And they came to me and they were like, hey, you got to take a pay cut. I was like, yep, cool, as long as everybody else takes a pay cut. They were like, well, but you're the highest paid. I'm like, okay, that's fine, but as long as everybody else takes a pay cut, I'll take a pay cut, okay? And I think I was on $750 or something. That was seeing money, but fuck, so what? You paid it to me.
Yeah.
Like, you can't come down and go, no, we don't want to pay it to you anymore. Like, fuck off, right? But so I was like, okay, cool. I'm down with that as long as everybody else, and nobody else would take a pay cut, right? So then they try to put pressure on me by leaking my wages and then saying what I got paid by the minute and all that sort of rubbish, And then I was carrying injuries, so I came like pretty broken. And, I was getting back on the field way too early than I should have been, so they broke all my wages down to the minute. And then I remember Paul Holmes rang me up. He was so cool. You remember Paul Holmes, right? Yeah. And he rang me up and he said, Matthew, I want to come and have a word to you. This is bullshit. You're just getting hammered from left, right and centre. So he came around and he interviewed me. It was real cool. And, like you could just see, like I remember watching that interview going, fuck, I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. So it wasn't a fun time, But do I regret coming back to the Warriors? No, because it made me resilient, like it made me realise that it made me really resilient. And I met some real cool people, like I'm like Arwen. Do you remember Arwen Gutenberg?
We had him on.
Yeah,
great guy.
He's just a beautiful person. I met him at Manly. He came to Manly, and I played with him at Manly. I don't think we ever played first grade together. I think he was too young then. But when he came, I played with Arwen in first grade at the Warriors, and mate, that boy could play. Like if he hadn't been smashed up with injuries, he would have been one of the greats. Yeah, because he could offload with both hands. He was tough as teak, and he was just a good bloke to have around.
We spoke about him the first 3 years, like being in the anaesthetic more than he spent time on the field or something.
Oh,
just
mate,
the most brutal run of injuries.
Some guys were just unlucky, and so he was unlucky. All of the guys were good, Stacey's good dude, Smiley, like all the guys were cool, but they just weren't tough enough. They just didn't have that mental resilience, and that's why we're still struggling today. Mm. And, I'll say this, like, you got to clear the dead wood, man, and the dead wood starts at the top. And it's not the coach. I think the coach is on the right track. But sorry, guys, all you guys that have been there for ages in those coaching roles and all this shit and all that shit, hey, fellas, what have you done for 20 fucking years? Mm. Do you know?
Because you were a part owner for a little while.
Yeah, I owned 25% of them.
Yeah. How's that going from player to
That was amazing.
To owner?
So I cleaned the shop out. Like I literally went, just sacked everybody because you had to. You can't keep the dead wood, right? It's just got to go. And then we just started again. We got Daniel Anderson. I got Mick Watson in, who was amazing for a time. Daniel was incredible. And Eric just let me sort of run the shop, you know. So the first year we run it, I was involved. We got to the semi-finals. That's the first time we made the semi-finals. And then the next year, I bailed, but then, you know, we'd set it up, and then the next year they made the grand final the next year, right? So, and then they got, you know, they did some really good things. You know, they got some really good coaches in. They had Ivan Cleary, look what Ivan's done. But yeah, it was an interesting time.
Just to sort of close us off, present day, Matthew, you're back in New Zealand for a couple of weeks. You're living in France, but you've got the podcast.
Yeah.
What do you how do you think about the future? Like, is the most important thing sort of spending time with family and your kids? You know, what do you think about going forward?
You know, I'm 56 now, so yeah, I guess my priority are my two youngest, and we went to France because I wanted my two youngest to speak their mother's tongue, which they are doing fluently now. Like they read in French, their mother tongue's English. It always will be English, but they sound French, which I'm real stoked about. But I won't lie and say that I do love France. It's a really beautiful country, but I feel kind of isolated there because I don't speak the language. And even though you can, you know, I understand the language, I can read it, but they speak so fast and you're so far behind, you know, like you can get the gist, but then when you're like, I just don't have the confidence to talk, right? So, you know, I can go and do the basics and order bread and, you know, order my food and all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to having a conversation like this, I'm not even close, you know, like I would have said 2 words. You know, so I'm finding that part of living in France extremely difficult because, like, I want to integrate into the culture. So, and it's tough with my my wife and my kids because they speak English at home, and I want them to speak French, but you know they just speak English. So if they spoke French, it'd be a lot easier for me. So I'm finding that part of it frustrating. What I love about France is the weather. Like the weather just has a huge difference to about how you feel about every day. You know, like you can be going through a tough time, but you wake up, pull the blinds open and it's warm and the sun's out and it's magnificent. I literally cannot tell you the difference that it's made to my mindset. You know, like, you know, you hear, like I love New Zealand and stuff, but it's 4 seasons in one day, you know, and you're lucky if you get any sun in that day, right? Yeah. It's wind, rain.
So is it safe to say you won't be back living here anytime soon?
No, it's not. It's not that. It's not that. It's like everything else. I'll be honest. Like everything. Like if going out in France is expensive, you know. Like if you go to a restaurant in France, it's and Chinese food that's the worst Chinese I've ever had in my life. Asian, they're just hopeless. But you know, if you go out of a restaurant or you have a night out, it's €600-700. You know, to go to a nice restaurant and, you know, then go and have a few drinks after. And, you know, that's for 2 or 3 people, but that's a lot of money. It's $1,400, right? So, but so when I come back here, like, you know, you can go out for dinner and it'll cost you €200. That's Kiwi, right? But in Europe, it's €200, which is 400 Kiwi. So, you know, but the staples are cheap. So for just normal people that are finding it hard to get by, that have got normal jobs, that are struggling, they can still live a pretty yummy life. You know, like the cheese over there is unbelievable. The fruit and veg is unbelievable. Like all the basics are really good, whereas all the basics here are so expensive. And that's why everybody's going to fucking McDonald's and KFC and shit. And that's why our kids are getting fat. And that's why mum and dad are getting fat. Like we're big. Right?
Yeah, are we big?
We're big, man.
Because you've done America recently to visit Jaime as well.
America's big.
Yeah.
But like France, not big, right? And they're drinking piss. They love their wine and they all drink their wine every day and, you know, they eat their cheeses and their breads. But there's no big people, man. Like if you see a fat person, you're like, what? You know? And I'm not putting shit on fat people. I'm just saying it's like the stuff that we can afford to eat, you know? It's what we can't afford to eat the good shit because the good shit costs too much money, whereas the good shit over there doesn't cost that much, you know? That's the thing. So that's my only bugbear with New Zealand, mate. But I tell you what, it's a beautiful country.
Yeah.
It really is. We're really lucky. We just got to fix that fucking weather.
Yeah. We'll work on it. Shay, anything before we wrap?
Just future Matthew. Like
future me, geez.
Like podcast.
Yeah, podcast. Podcast is something I'm really enjoying, you know, like I'm really enjoying that. And, you know, like I guess I've been really fortunate enough that I don't have a day-to-day job. But what I will say about that is, and society judges you, well, whether it's society, whether it's me, I'm not sure. But you kind of feel like a bit of a cop-out. You know, like you feel like you're like, you know, like, hey, I've got enough where I can just get by. I'm not loaded, you know, but I know that if I don't do anything again, I'll go to my grave and I won't want for anything, right? But society kind of makes you feel like people say, what are you doing? I go, well, not a lot actually. I'll just cruise around, go to the gym, pick up my kids. But, you know, like... We did ask
that of Ringo and Boston. And they said exactly that.
Yeah, but I'll say that. I'll say this, like I have so much respect for people that look after their kids because it is a full-time job, man. Anybody that says that it isn't is an idiot, right? So when a man leaves a wife or a wife leaves a man and he's been the breadwinner and he gets pissed off that he gets cut in half, mate, you deserve to get cut in half because it's hard work, right? It's hard work. And I do a lot of that stuff, you know, like Chloe, she's into the fitness thing now, so she's working, which is cool for her. And so I do a lot of the kids stuff, right? So by the time I've taken the kids to school, gone there to buy to eat, read my paper, gone and done a little bit of French, gone to the gym, fluffed around, gone home, had a little lay down. Sorry. You know how you just lie out of the thing and you just nod off for 2 minutes. Then I wake up and I'm like, fuck, I've got to go pick the kids up. And then go pick up the kids, get them home, get them changed, run around, play a bit of footy, like muck around with them, get them dinner, get them into bed, get them like, and I'll tell you, the homework in France is insane. Like my son's nearly 7. He does an hour and a half's homework a night. Like, so we are so far behind education-wise in New Zealand. Like, I don't particularly subscribe to that an hour and a half a night. I think it's batshit. I think it's way too much. He's a little bit behind because he's learning 2 languages. So, but it's at least an hour's work a night. I don't subscribe to that, but we're competing against those kids. Our kids, New Zealand kids, are competing against the French education system, right? And the French education system leaves ours for fucking dead. Yeah. You know, like we are miles behind. Like literacy and all that stuff. Like these kids are like just out the gate, you know? Like seriously, Kenzo's bag, it weighs about 7 kilos. Yeah. Right? He's got to have wheels on it. Yeah. No shit. Yeah. But anyway, that's where we're at. So yeah, so for me, I don't know. I just take it day by day. But you definitely want to get into this podcast. But you know what, like I love my life. I'm not complaining at all. But you do find that, you know, like especially when you've achieved, like I've achieved, and you're sort of running around, you know, like you're doing pretty basic things. But hey, life can be simple too, and the simplest things in life are sometimes the best.
Thanks, mate. Thanks so much for coming in and sharing with us today. Like awesome. We covered some serious ground, but your life has been built for a long form podcast. Like, man, we could have gone for another 2 hours. But yeah, thank you so much. No, it's been so cool.
Well, I only wrote one thing down, which was accumulated learnings, and that was that's been the theme for me listening to you about you've had your ups and downs, and you've had your challenges and ins and outs, but you've seemed to me that you've learnt from them as you've gone along.
Totally.
And, you know, kind of everything that's happened in your life has happened for a reason, one reason or another. And it's arrived you at this point here where if your parting words were, I love my life, it's not too bad a place to be.
Oh, no, I'm pretty happy. Thanks, guys. Absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed it.